The guard walks to the door. It hisses shut behind him. The lock engages with a solid click. The children are alone in the White Room. The girl puts her arm around her brother. "She's coming," she whispers. He nods, his head against her shoulder. He believes her. There is no doubt in his mind. Their captors have confidence in their technology, their protocols, their strength. Their captives have confidence in something else entirely. Elsewhere, a ship moves through the void. It makes no sound. Its path is a calculated arc through the dark. It is not a warship. It carries no heavy weapons. Its only cargo is a thermos of hot chocolate and a singular, focused intent. It closes the distance. Xerath cruisers are not just shielded. They are layered. 17 separate defensive protocols wrap the hull. You start with outer sensor nets, then point defense grids, then shielded docking collars. Each requires its own key. The primary docking bay needs 3 separate authorization codes just to cycle the atmosphere. It is a system designed to repel fleet actions. It assumes mass assault, not subtle entry. Military history shows this is a common flaw. The most elaborate gates are built to stop armies. They rarely account for the single quiet visitor. She did not approach as a threat. She approached as paperwork. Her insertion craft mimicked a standard logistics shuttle. It broadcast the correct transponder codes. It used the approved approach vector. Advanced naval infiltration depends on this. You don't break the rules. You use them. She transmitted a formatted data packet. It was a routine logistics update, the kind sent by automated systems 100 times a day. The ship's AI scanned it. The headers were perfect. The encryption keys matched current fleet standards. It registered the approach as a friendly systems update. No alarm sounded. The docking request followed protocol. It was a dry, bureaucratic query for a maintenance berth. The system processed it. It was not an attack. It was a transaction. This is how most high-tech defenses fail. They are built to recognize enemies. They are not built to recognize friendly procedures being used against them. It is the oldest trick in the book. You don't force the door. You convince the guard to open it for you. Military archives are full of such breaches. The Trojan horse was not a weapon. It was a gift. The principle remains. She didn't break their defenses. She convinced them to lower the drawbridge. The massive armor plates of the primary bay door slid aside. The magnetic clamps engaged her craft with a soft thud. The atmosphere cycled. To the crew on duty, it was another boring shift. Another supply run. They saw a standard-issue shuttle. They did not see the operator inside. They did not see the calm in her eyes. They saw a routine log entry on a screen. The system gave her a green light. It welcomed her home. How does one woman infiltrate a ship designed to be impenetrable? She knows something they forgot. All systems are run by people. And people create procedures. Those procedures have gaps. They have assumptions. The biggest assumption is that no one would be audacious enough to use their own paperwork as a weapon. She didn't bring a bomb. She brought the correct forms. She didn't use a virus. She used their own communication protocols. The ship's security saw an authorized update. It never saw a threat. Once inside, the environment changed. She was no longer an outsider trying to get in. She was a component within the machine. Her presence was logged. Her craft was parked. She had passed through every layer. Now she stood in a brightly lit maintenance bay, surrounded by the hum of alien machinery. The rules of engagement shifted completely. The Xerath were still playing a game of perimeter defense. She was already playing a game of interior control. The ship was no longer their fortress. It was her chessboard, and she had just taken the first square without them even knowing the match had begun. Combat usually involves shouting, threats, intimidation. It is a language of volume and violence. Psychological warfare research confirms this pattern. Aggression triggers aggression. It creates a predictable loop. The Xerath expected this. They were trained for it. Their response protocols are built around hostile contact. They know how to handle screaming enemies. They have drills for prisoners who fight. They have no drills for politeness. Her voice reached the bridge first. It was calm, measured, impeccably courteous. She thanked them for their hospitality. She said it while bypassing a secondary security gate. The words were clear over the comm. "Thank you for granting me access." It was not a taunt. It was a statement of fact. The Xerath commander initially thought it was a misrouted diplomatic transmission, perhaps an envoy from a neutral party. The tone was too composed for a threat. Special Operations Doctrine values this misdirection. Unexpected behavior disrupts enemy decision cycles. It forces them to pause, to reassess, to waste precious seconds. Every polite phrase carried the weight of absolute certainty. Please remain at your stations. I appreciate your cooperation. There was no request in her tone. Only declaration. She was not asking for permission. She was informing them of reality. This is a known technique in high-stakes negotiation. Courtesy can be a weapon. It denies the opponent the emotional response they are prepared to counter. Anger they can process, fear they can use. Calm, unwavering politeness leaves them with nothing to push against. It is like trying to fight a shadow. The bridge crew grew uneasy. Their training offered no guidance. Do you fire on someone who thanks you? Do you treat a calm voice as a hostile act? Their confidence, once their greatest asset, began to work against them. They were so sure of their superiority, so certain of their control. Her manners were a mirror. They showed them their own arrogance. And in that reflection they saw a flaw. Their system had allowed this. Their protocols had welcomed her. She was using their own rules against them, and she was doing it with the grace of a guest. What psychological warfare turns confidence into a weakness, the kind that uses the enemy's own framework? She did not insult them. She did not threaten. She simply operated within their structure with more skill than they possessed. She showed them that their authority was a costume she could wear. Their security was a door she could open. Their command was a language she could speak perfectly. It made their strength seem hollow. It made their power seem borrowed. That courtesy began to unravel their command structure. Officers glanced at each other. Questions went unanswered. The chain of command relies on certainty. It depends on clear threats and defined responses. When the threat is a polite woman thanking you for your time, the chain snaps. Discipline frayed. Confusion spread. They were not being attacked. They were being corrected. And correction is a harder thing to fight than violence. You cannot shoot a lesson. You cannot counter a principle. You can only realize too late that you were never in control. The ship was hers now. She had taken it with please and thank you. The real breach was not in the hull. It was in their minds. Professional soldiers fear their quarry when it stops behaving like prey. Zereth guards train for hostile prisoners. They practice handling screaming, fighting, begging. They have protocols for rage and despair. These are known quantities. They can be managed, suppressed, broken. The children offered none of that. The girl in particular, she looked at her captors with a calm that felt like assessment, not hatred, not fear, evaluation. This confused their interrogation routines. The questions they asked were designed to provoke a reaction, to create an emotional crack they could exploit. She gave them nothing but quiet answers and direct eye contact. Military training prepares you for expected reactions. It fails against profound stillness. Guards began reporting unease. They used the term "too quiet" in their logs. They noted the children did not cry. They did not demand to go home. They sat, they observed. They waited. In counterinsurgency studies, this is a documented phenomenon. Unconventional resistance undermines morale more effectively than open hostility. It denies the captor the satisfaction of control. It turns captivity into a different kind of engagement, one where the power dynamic is not as clear as it should be. The guards were trained to dominate. You cannot dominate a void. The mother's approach amplified this effect. Her presence seeped into the ship's awareness. The guards knew she was aboard. They knew she was moving. They heard her calm voice on the comms. The children's quiet defiance began to make a new kind of sense. It was not passivity. It was inheritance. They were behaving like her. Their composure was a mirror of her own. This connection unsettled the guards more than any weapon. They were not just holding prisoners. They were holding consequences. The fear became personal. It was no longer about a security breach. It was about confronting a principle they did not understand. Why did they start fearing a single human mother more than their own commanders? Their commanders represented authority. They represented rules, punishment, discipline. These were familiar concepts. The mother represented something else entirely. She represented a love that had transformed into absolute capability, an anger so cold it felt like logic. Their commanders could order them to die for the empire. She would simply make it happen without an order. She was not part of their hierarchy. She was a force of nature wearing a human shape. Their commanders operated within a system of rewards and punishments. She operated on a calculus of necessity. They began to realize their commanders could protect them from demotion, from disgrace. They could not protect them from her. That fear became their operational liability. Hesitation entered their actions. Guards second-guessed patrol routes. They checked corners that were always safe. They listened for a voice that was not there. Fear is a solvent. It dissolves discipline. It erodes coordination. A military unit functions on shared confidence. Once that cracks, every soldier becomes alone. They were no longer a cohesive defense force. They were a collection of individuals waiting for a lesson they knew was coming. Their training had taught them how to be brave in the face of a known enemy. It had not taught them how to be brave in the face of the inevitable. Soldiers trained to control territory, to dominate space. They see a corridor and think avenue of advance. A room becomes a strong point. It is a mindset of occupation. She did not think that way. She did not fight the ship's design. She used it. Military strategy has always emphasized using terrain to advantage, the high ground, the choke point, the ambush site. She understood the ship was not just a vessel. It was a landscape, one she had studied in the quiet of her home while her children slept. Corridors became fatal funnels, not because she blocked them, because she knew how the Zareth would move through them. Their patrol routes were predictable. Their response times were logged in her mind. Ventilation shafts became ambush sites, not because she hid in them, because she used them to listen, to move sound, to control airflow and temperature. Small things that unsettle soldiers used to perfect environmental control. Historical battles show this pattern. Defenders who know their ground can turn structures against attackers. The castle wall becomes a trap. The city street becomes a killing zone. The ship's own security systems became liabilities. The Zareth started fearing their own technology. The door that hissed shut behind them felt like a trap. The console that flickered seemed suspicious. She did not sabotage these systems. She simply revealed how they could fail, how they could be used against their owners. This is psychological terrain shaping. You make the enemy feel unsafe in their own home. You turn their confidence into paranoia. Their own weapons, their own protocols become threats. She did not bring weapons. She revealed the weapons already present. A fire suppression system can flood a compartment with inert gas. A power conduit can be overloaded to create a diversion. A communication panel can isolate a section of the ship. How does she transform the enemy ship into her hunting ground? She understands it better than they do. They see it as a tool. She sees it as a partner. They built it to function. She studied it to fail. Every system has a weakness. Every protocol has a loophole. She did not need to break anything. She needed to show them the breaks were already there, waiting. This is the highest form of tactical artistry. You do not defeat the enemy. You let the environment defeat them for you. You are not a combatant. You are an architect. You design the battle before the first shot is fired. The transformation made hundreds of soldiers irrelevant. Their numbers meant nothing. Their training meant nothing. They were not fighting a person. They were fighting a principle. The principle that any space can be turned against its occupants if you understand it deeply enough. They were not outgunned. They were outthought. Their strength became their cage. Their technology became their warden. She moved among them not as an invader, but as a ghost in the machine. A whisper in the wiring. A truth they had refused to see. That to hunt humans is to enter a labyrinth of their own making. And the walls have ears. The floors have teeth. The air has intent. This architectural shift in the conflict rendered their martial superiority a footnote. 100 soldiers with plasma rifles are useless when the battlefield itself has chosen a side. The boy looks up at the guard's tense face. "Do you have Cheetos here?" he asks. His voice is small but clear. Outside the door, alarms sound. Boots pound past in the corridor. The guard's hand trembles slightly on his weapon. He ignores the question. This is not how captives behave. Panic, he understands. Desperate questions about home, he expects. Snack requests break his script. Their normalcy is a form of psychological resistance. It is quiet, unbreakable. The girl sits straight-backed on the bench. Her posture is not stiff with fear. It is relaxed, alert. It mirrors her mother's calm readiness. She watches the guard's nervous movements. She does not look away. Her eyes hold the same steady assessment. They are not the eyes of a victim. They are the eyes of an observer, a witness, She hums a tune from a commercial she likes. The melody is simple, catchy, out of place in the sterile hold. Her brother joins in. They are not singing loudly. They are just filling the silence with something familiar, something from home. They begin to rate their captors. This one gets a 3, the girl says, nodding toward the jittery guard. Bad posture. Nervous hands. Her brother considers it. I give him a 2. He didn't even answer about the Cheetos. This is not ignorance of their situation. It is a profound understanding of it. Their calm is not born from a lack of fear. It is forged in a specific kind of domestic love. They have been prepared for the unthinkable not through drills but through rituals, through a mother who taught them that composure is a choice, that normalcy is a shield. They know her patterns. They know what the thermos of hot chocolate means. It is not just a drink. It is a signal. It means she is going to work. It means she will be precise. It means she will be back. They know the sound of her footsteps, the way she folds a sweater, the look in her eyes when she calculates a problem. They have seen her measure herself against impossible odds and win. Their trust is not blind faith. It is earned. It is based on a lifetime of small certain victories. Their captors expected screams. They expected tears. They expected to be feared. This quiet companionship unnerves them more than any outburst. Screams can be silenced. Tears can be ignored. Fear can be used. This steady humming normalcy is a wall they cannot scale. The guards feel their own anxiety grow. They are armed. They are in control of the room, yet they are the ones who feel watched. They are the ones who feel judged. The power dynamic is subtly, irrevocably reversed. The captors become the performers. The captives become the audience. They are psychologically unbreakable because they were never alone. Their mother's will is a presence in the room with them. Her lessons are in their posture. Her confidence is in their quiet voices. They are not just 2 children in a white room. They are a piece of a larger system. A system designed for retrieval. A system that is now in motion. The door to the hold hisses open. The guards snap to attention, weapons rising. The footsteps that enter are not the heavy tread of armored boots. They are familiar, measured, precise. The sound of someone who knows exactly where she is going. The sound of coming home. The door to the hold hissed open. Not with force. With precision. She stood there, no armor, no visible weapon. Her eyes went straight to her children. The guards tensed, rifles half raised. They expected an attack. A blast, a charge. She said, "Thank you for babysitting." The words were calm, sincere. They landed in the tense air like a foreign object. The guards hesitated. Their training did not cover gratitude from an intruder. Courtesy disarmed them more effectively than any weapon. It created a cognitive gap, a moment of confusion. She used it. Her movement was efficient, a practiced extraction. She did not run to her children. She walked. Her steps were measured, certain. She knelt in front of them. Her hands were steady as she checked them over. It was a clinical assessment, a visual scan for bruises, a gentle turn of the wrist to check for binding marks. Her touch was firm, reassuring. This was not an emotional reunion. It was a professional debrief. She was verifying the condition of her assets. Her children looked up at her. They were not surprised. They had been waiting. From a pocket inside her coat, she produced the thermos. It was still warm. She unscrewed the cap. The smell of hot chocolate filled the sterile air. It was a small domestic scent. Out of place. She handed it to her son. He took a sip. His shoulders relaxed. This simple act, this piece of home, was the final piece of the reclamation. It underscored the surreal nature of the moment. In the heart of an alien warship surrounded by armed guards, a mother was giving her child a drink. Normalcy became the ultimate display of power. She did not look at the guards again. They were irrelevant. Her focus was on the exit. She had already prepared the routes. She knew which corridors were clear, which systems were under her influence. She took her daughter's hand. Her son stood still holding the thermos. They moved toward the door. The guards did not stop them. They were paralyzed by the sheer improbability of the scene. This was not a rescue. It was a retrieval. It was calm, swift, inevitable. The entire operation took less than a minute from the moment the door opened. There was no struggle, no drama, only a quiet, unstoppable conclusion. The children fell into step beside her. They knew the drill. They had been prepared for this. Their trust was absolute. As they disappeared down the corridor, the spell broke. One guard lunged for the alarm panel. His hand slammed down on the control. The klaxon blared through the ship. A loud, belated warning. It was too late. The sound was not a signal of threat. It was a monument to their failure. It was the sound of the Huntress leaving. Her mission was complete. The children were safe. The ship was intact. The lesson had been delivered without a single shot fired. The alarm wailed into the empty corridor, a noise signifying nothing. They had been outplayed on every level. The rescue was over before their defense began. Her voice came through the ship's internal comms again, not raised, not strained. Just a statement. Prey that writes the hunting rules is not prey, Commander. The words hung in the air, reshaping reality itself. She wasn't describing a battle. She was defining a new one. The Zareth commander stood frozen at his station. He looked at the tactical displays, the trapped squads, the malfunctioning systems. He realized with a cold certainty that they were not in a fight. They were inside her design. Every ambush they planned, she had anticipated hours earlier. Their movements were not their own. They were responses to her nudges. A door left ajar. A vent mysteriously unsealed. A gravity plate subtly misaligned. These were not accidents. They were invitations. Their numbers, once their greatest advantage, became a liability. She funneled them into choke points they themselves had built. Corridors designed for rapid deployment became killing zones with no enemy in sight. Their own security protocols locked them in place. They were not being attacked. They were being curated. She did not confront them. She guided them. Like a sculptor shaping clay, she used their momentum, their training, their predictable reactions. They charged down a hallway she wanted cleared. They fortified a room she wanted empty. Their actions, born of doctrine and discipline, played directly into her hands. The ship's very physics seemed to bend to her will. Lights flickered not to disorient but to direct. Gravity shifted not to hinder but to herd. It was a masterpiece of indirect control. She turned their environment into a passive-aggressive collaborator. Her patience was mathematical. There was no rush, no wasted energy. Each action was a variable in a larger equation she was solving in real time. Her precision was surgical. She didn't break bones. She severed nerves. She didn't destroy systems. She isolated functions. The Zareth were not being defeated by force. They were being disassembled by logic. Their confidence, their technology, their numerical superiority, all of it was being systematically proven irrelevant. They were not in a war. They were in a demonstration. The resolution was inevitable. The hunter had become the hunted. The mighty Zareth cruiser, a symbol of imperial power, was now a cage for its own crew. They were not chasing a ghost. They were being paced by one. The commander finally understood the depth of his error. He had not captured a family. He had triggered a protocol, one written in a language he did not speak, based on a mathematics he did not understand. His pride lay in ruins around him, each piece a testament to his own blindness. He slammed his fist on the console, his composure breaking at last. This was not an acceptable outcome. This was not how the story ended. He would not be undone by a single human and her infuriating calm. He would break the board. He would change the game. His voice, when it came, was a ragged shout, stripped of all its former authority, raw with a desperation he could no longer hide. Unleash the fleet. All ships converge on my position. Authorization Omega. I want that human ship vaporized. It was a desperate measure. A move of pure fury. It was the only card he had left to play. She herded them. Not with force. With suggestion. The reactor room was not a battlefield. It was a calibrated trap. The chamber sat at the ship's core. Its walls hummed with contained power. The Zareth response teams followed protocol. They moved to secure critical systems. They were not ordered there. They were guided. Their own procedures sent them. It was the logical move. She had made it inevitable. Environmental failures partnered with arrogance. A fake alarm from engineering. A false report of a coolant leak. The teams rushed in. They saw a problem to fix. They did not see the geometry of the room. The narrow accessways. The single main door. Their training demanded they enter. Their confidence said they controlled the ship. Both were wrong. She used their momentum against them. She gave them a direction. They took it. No force was needed. Their own discipline did the work. The door sealed behind the last soldier. It was not a violent slam. It was a quiet hiss. Standard emergency containment. The system registered a potential reactor instability. It did its job. It isolated the area. The heavy alloy door locked. Then the gravity shifted. Not a failure. A controlled adjustment. The field generators in the deck plates increased output by 0.5 point. It was not enough to crush. It was enough to pin. Soldiers stumbled. Their armor felt suddenly leaden. Their weapons became anchors. Systems overloaded gracefully. Alerts flashed on consoles across the ship. Power fluctuations. Containment field stress. It looked like a cascade failure. It was a precisely managed ballet of errors. Each alert was a note in a song of confusion. The reactor itself was fine. The perception of danger was the weapon. Their own orders compounded the disaster. The commander, desperate to retake control, shouted for a full lockdown of engineering. His command sealed secondary hatches. It cut off his own men. It turned the reactor room into a perfect bottle. She did not fire a shot. She let physics do the work. She let their systems obey their programming. She let their training dictate their movements. She was not a combatant in the room. She was a director in the control booth. The soldiers inside struggled against the increased gravity. They tried to force the doors. They fired plasma cutters at the hull. The metal was designed to contain a star's heart. It did not budge. Their efforts wasted their energy. Their air began to stale. They were not defeated. They were contained, neutralized. The commander's fury became his undoing. He saw hundreds of his best troops trapped. He saw his ship crippled from within. His rage clouded his judgment. He stopped thinking like a strategist. He started reacting like a cornered animal. He demanded solutions his crew could not give. He blamed their incompetence. He created chaos on the bridge. His anger was the final component she needed. A confused enemy is a defeated enemy. A furious enemy is a predictable one. The resolution was maximum effect with minimal expenditure. She disabled a significant portion of the ship's crew. She broke the commander's nerve. She did it without a single energy weapon discharge. She used their own infrastructure, their own protocols, their own pride. The cost to her was focus, time, a calculated risk. The cost to them was a lesson in humility, one they would not forget. His final command was not a calculated move. It was a surrender to emotion. A scream into the void. He slammed his hand on the comm panel. His voice cracked with a raw, unfiltered rage he could no longer contain. Unleash the fleet. All ships converge on my position. Authorization Omega. I want that human ship vaporized. It was not strategy. It was a tantrum. And it was exactly what she knew he would do. Space is vast. Distances are measured in light years. Moving a fleet across sectors takes time. It requires coordination on a scale most empires cannot manage. Advanced naval doctrine values this above all else. Synchronized deployment. Not just arriving together. At the exact right moment. The Zereth detection systems were some of the best in the galaxy. They showed nothing. No energy spikes. No gravitational anomalies. No mass shadows. The space around their cruiser was empty. Until it wasn't. The human ships decloaked as one. Not in one location. Across multiple sectors. Their appearance was not a staggered arrival. It was a single event. A statement. Military history proves this repeatedly. Surprise and timing are more valuable than numbers. A small force that arrives exactly when and where it is needed can defeat a much larger one. This was not a rescue response. It was the final move in a plan that had been in motion for hours. The Huntress reaching the command deck was not a signal. It was a synchronization point. Her progress and their arrival were two parts of the same clock. Their timing was perfect because it was predetermined. The fleet was not reacting to events. They were executing a script. The Huntress's infiltration created the conditions. It drew the Zereth's attention inward. It made them focus on the ghost in their machine. They were looking at the small problem inside the ship. They failed to see the large solution forming outside it. This is the essence of strategic deception. You make the enemy watch the wrong hand. Why does an entire fleet appear at the perfect moment? Because it was never coming to fight a battle. It was coming to win a war that hadn't started yet. Its purpose was demonstration, not destruction. The sudden presence of so many ships, silent and precise, was a psychological weapon. It showed a level of coordination and foresight the Zereth believed impossible. They thought they were the masters of deep space deployment. They were students watching a masterclass. The fleet's arrival rewrote every power calculation in the sector. It proved that human space was not undefended. It was protected by a capability that operated on a different level, one that could move forces across interstellar distances without detection, one that could time their appearance to the second. This was not about having a bigger navy. It was about having a smarter one. A navy that understood that the true battlefield is not space. It is the enemy's mind. Their confidence shattered not from weapons fire, but from the undeniable reality of their own blindness. They had been outthought on a galactic scale. Their own sensors had told them they were safe. Their own eyes now told them they were wrong. The universe was not as empty as they believed, and humanity was not as simple. The lesson was delivered without a single shot. The mere presence of the fleet was the verdict. Most galactic empires expect aggression. They see expansion as the natural state of power. Their military doctrine is built on conquest, on taking, on imposing will through overwhelming force. Humanity's philosophy is different. Their fleet did not deploy in attack formations. They took up protective positions, defensive postures. This is not a sign of weakness. Military research confirms it can be more effective than offense. It allows you to control the engagement, to dictate terms, to minimize your own losses while maximizing the enemy's frustration. The Zereth expected a direct assault. They prepared for a head-on collision. They got a chess match where the board itself was working against them. Their weapons did not seek to destroy. They targeted engines, weapons emplacements, communication arrays. They disabled ship after ship with surgical precision. The goal was not annihilation. It was neutralization. Historical strategies often favor containment. You do not need to break an enemy if you can render them harmless. You preserve resources. You leave options open for future negotiations. The Zereth commander saw his fleet being systematically dismantled, not destroyed. His ships drifted, powerless but intact. Their crews were alive but defeated. This realization was more terrifying than any explosion. They were not being attacked. They were being herded, managed, contained. Humanity does not seek conquest. It enforces boundaries. This is a fundamental shift in galactic military thinking. Their strength is not for taking what is not theirs. It is for protecting what is. This doctrine rewrites the rules of engagement. It makes conflict a matter of defense, not aggression. It tells the galaxy that human space is not a frontier to be crossed. It is a line to be respected. Any incursion will be met with a response that is precise, proportional, and utterly decisive. The goal is not to conquer the enemy, but to correct their behavior, to teach them the cost of their error without resorting to the brutality they expect. This approach makes every future encounter predictable, but not in the way the Zereth understood. Predictability in warfare is usually a weakness. It means your enemy knows your next move. Here it is a strength. It means the outcome is certain before the fight begins. The Zereth, or any empire, now knows exactly what will happen if they cross a human boundary. They will be stopped. They will be contained. They will be neutralized. Their technology will be turned against them. Their confidence will be used as a weapon. They will lose not because they were outgunned, but because they were outthought. Their doctrine of expansion is rendered obsolete by a doctrine of protection. The universe now understands that humanity's patience is not unlimited. Their politeness is not a weakness. Their restraint is not fear. It is a choice, a calculated demonstration of power held in reserve. A warning that some lines once drawn are permanent. This new reality settles over the battlefield, quiet and absolute. A lesson written not in ruins, but in functioning ships that can no longer wage war. Battles are usually measured in territory. Ground gained. Ships destroyed. Resources captured. The human fleet rewrote that metric. They achieved their precise objectives and withdrew. They left Zereth ships disabled but not destroyed. Hulls intact. Crews alive. The weapons that remained were silent. The engines were cold. The victory was not in the ruin they created. It was in the ruin they chose not to create. Psychological warfare research confirms this. Messages outlast tactical outcomes. A demonstration of power is fleeting. A demonstration of restraint is eternal. The story of a fleet obliterated is a tragedy. The story of a fleet spared is a warning. Every surviving Zereth soldier became a witness. They returned to their posts. They spoke in hushed tones in the mess halls. They described the calm voices, the precise targeting, the utter lack of rage. They carried the story of their defeat not as a tale of overwhelming force, but of overwhelming control. Military history demonstrates this principle repeatedly. Demonstrated restraint intimidates more than brutality. Brutality confirms an enemy's worldview. It tells them you are a beast, just a more powerful one. Restraint shatters their worldview. It tells them you operate on a level they cannot comprehend. You are not just stronger. You are different. The battle was not about winning a conflict. It was about teaching a lesson. The objective was not to break the Zareth military. It was to break their strategic assumptions, to show them that their understanding of power was flawed. Their doctrine of expansion was built on a fundamental error. They believed that might made right. The human response proved that right made might. That defense could be an active, decisive, and terrifying form of power. The lesson was not delivered through a declaration. It was delivered through action, through the quiet, systematic dismantling of a threat without the need for its annihilation. What makes this final act more about messaging than conquest? Conquest is finite. It has borders. A message is infinite. It travels, it grows. It evolves in the telling. The human fleet did not claim a single star system. They claimed the future. They established a new rule without writing a single law. They showed every empire watching that human space is protected by a principle. That principle is simple. Do not touch what is ours. The cost of violation will be precise, proportional, and utterly decisive. It will not be an act of war. It will be an act of correction. This lesson did not end with the battle. It began there. The silent, drifting Zareth ships were not wreckage. They were monuments. They were classrooms. Every passing vessel would see them. Every intelligence report would analyze them. The story would spread from imperial court to imperial court. The calculations would change. The risk assessments would be rewritten. The galaxy learned that humanity does not conquer. It guards, and its guardians do not use rage. They use mathematics. They use psychology. They use the enemy's own strength against them. The message was not sent in a transmission. It was written in the cold, silent metal of ships that were left perfectly intact and perfectly helpless. This precise, terrifying lesson would echo through every strategy session, every war room, every imperial court that now had to factor in a new, unforgiving equation. Most empires view strength as a clenched fist. It is something you project outward, something you use to take what you want. They saw the human response and learned a different truth. Strength can also be a shield. The fleet's defensive positioning, its surgical targeting, the way it contained without destroying. This was not a weakness. It was a new form of superiority. Galactic politics operate on power balances. When one shifts, everything recalculates. Other species paused their own expansion plans. They looked at their maps of human space, once seen as soft frontiers, and now saw unmarked boundaries guarded by a terrifying new calculus. The Zareth incident became required study at their military academies. This is how turning points are cemented, not just through action but through institutional memory. Historical shifts often arrive not with a declaration, but with a demonstration. A new capability is shown and the old rules become obsolete. The galaxy learned that human families are not just clusters of individuals. They are nodes in a defensive network. They are protected by a capability that is both unprecedented and unimaginable to empires built on conquest. The protection is not just physical. It is psychological, strategic, and absolute. Why will this rescue be remembered as the day the galaxy learned its lesson? Because it made the cost incalculable. It proved that touching a human child is not a minor transgression. It is an act that unlocks a response of mathematical precision and overwhelming force. The lesson was not delivered with a threat. It was delivered with a result. Every surviving Zareth soldier carried that result back home. Every intelligence agency analyzed the sensor logs. Every admiral saw the footage of their finest ships rendered helpless, not ruined. The message was clear and unforgiving. Human space is not empty territory. It is a web of protected claims. Each home, each family is a point on that web. Disturb one point and the entire structure responds. This lesson redefined relations for centuries. It established a permanent caution. Empires that once saw humanity as scattered and vulnerable now saw them as unified and unassailable. The shift was not in human nature. It was in galactic perception. They finally understood that humanity's patience is not infinite. Its politeness is not submission. Its restraint is not fear. It is a choice. A demonstration of power held in reserve. A warning that the most dangerous protectors are those who measure their response and find your entire military doctrine wanting. The rescue of two children became the foundation of a new interstellar reality, one where aggression carries a price too precise to risk. This recalibration of risk, this newfound respect for the sanctity of a human home, would become the enduring legacy of that day. The galaxy learned to look at a quiet frontier world and see not weakness but a sleeping guardian. And they learned to let it sleep. Military legends are usually built on campaigns, battles, body counts. Hers was built on a single operation, but that operation contained everything. It spread through official channels first. Zereth military reports, debriefings, the accounts were sanitized. Commanders downplayed their role. They emphasized technical malfunctions, unexplained system failures. They called it an anomaly. Unofficial channels told a different story. Soldiers talked in hushed tones. They needed to explain their survival. Their stories were a mix of fact and fear, a coping mechanism, a warning to others. This is how legends form. They combine what happened with what needs to be believed. Human children heard a different version. A bedtime story. It was simplified, focused on heroism, a mother's love. The cold, hard math of her strategy was softened into a tale of courage. This is how cultural mythology works. It takes a historical event and polishes it. It makes it safe. It makes it teachable. The story was passed down to instill values, to show that even the smallest can be protected by the fiercest. The legend grew in the telling. It became a foundational myth. It wasn't just about one woman. It was about what she represented. She became both a warning and an inspiration across species lines. For humanity, she was a symbol, proof that love could be forged into a weapon, that a home was not a weakness but a fortress. For other species, she was a cautionary tale, a reminder that humanity's quiet exterior hid a terrifying capability, that their politeness was not submission, their restraint was not fear. It was a choice, a calculated demonstration of power held in reserve. This dual nature cemented her legend. She was the protector and the predator, the mother and the monster. Depending on who was telling the story, her reputation established a new galactic fact. Humanity was fiercely protective. Their settlements were not soft targets. They were nodes in a defensive network. This reputation shaped diplomacy. It changed military calculations. Empires that once looked at human space with ambition now looked with caution. The cost of aggression had been demonstrated. It was not just ships lost. It was pride. It was strategic certainty. The legend of the Huntress did that. It made an entire sector of space unassailable through reputation alone. Her strategic brilliance became a key part of the myth. The way she used the Zereth's own technology against them, her understanding of their protocols, her anticipation of their moves. This was not just a story about strength. It was a story about intelligence. It highlighted a different way to win, not through overwhelming force but through superior thinking. This made her a lasting figure, a subject of study, a role model for a different kind of soldier. The contrast defined her. Her calm demeanor against the chaos she created, her polite words in the heart of a military operation. This juxtaposition made her unforgettable. It proved true strength lies in control, not in outbursts. The presence of her children in the story grounded it. Their faith, their safety. It humanized the legend. It made it about family. This ensured the story would endure. It would be told and retold. It would outlive the empires involved. It would become a permanent part of the galaxy's memory, a lesson written not in stone but in story, a warning that some lines once drawn are defended by legends. The cost calculation changes permanently. Raiders now factor in the unseen. They study star charts and see not empty space but guarded territory. The risk-reward equation shifts from a simple profit analysis to a complex threat assessment. One mother recalculated the math for an entire empire. She did not petition their senate. She demonstrated a new variable in their strategic models. Her children were the perfect bait. Their capture provided a clear, sympathetic justification for her response. They were also the ultimate prize. Their retrieval proved the response's success. The message was not sent through screams or explosions. It was delivered through quiet, surgical inevitability. Zereth training manuals now dedicate entire chapters to human psychology. Cadets study case studies of the incident. They analyze the calm voice recordings. They dissect the tactical decisions. The curriculum is not about weapon yields or shield strengths. It is about patterns of thought. It is about understanding a mindset that sees conflict not as a contest of force but as a matter of corrective action. The core lesson is simple, printed in bold text. Never corner what you don't understand. This is not a suggestion. It is a primary directive. It is the first rule of any engagement planning. Some lessons only need teaching once. The demonstration was too complete, too absolute. The Zareth saw their finest cruiser turned into a classroom. They watched their elite troops neutralized by their own ship. They felt their entire military doctrine become obsolete in a single, quiet operation. The cost of testing that lesson again is unthinkable. It is not just the loss of ships. It is the loss of certainty. It is the admission that their understanding of power was fundamentally flawed. That is a price no empire can pay twice. The story ends where it began, not with a bang but with a return to normalcy. The children are back on their colony world. The sky is clear. The perimeter fence is just a fence again. They build forts from packing crates near the landing field. Their laughter carries on the thin air. The game is the same. The players are the same. But the context is forever altered. The galaxy itself feels different, smaller, more known. The shadows that once held unknown threats now hold a known consequence. A silent agreement hangs between the stars, an understanding written not in treaties, but in the lingering memory of a perfectly measured response. The quiet is no longer just the absence of noise. It is the presence of a promise kept, a line respected, a family protected. The math is settled. The equation is balanced. Play continues, underwritten by the most formidable piece there is. The piece that comes from a lesson learned the hard way, and learned for good. Raiders now factor in unseen guardians. The risk-reward equation for targeting human colonies shifted permanently after that day. The cost of aggression was no longer just potential military loss. It became the certainty of facing something outside their understanding. One mother recalculated an empire's entire strategic policy. Her children were not just the motivation, they were the ultimate prize. And the perfect bait. The message delivered to the Zareth was not sent through violence. It was delivered through a quiet, terrible inevitability. Their own training manuals were rewritten. New chapters on human psychology were added. They learned the hard way. Never corner what you cannot comprehend. Some lessons only require one teaching. The story ends where it began, with children playing, but the galaxy now watches them differently. Victory celebrations usually focus on heroes, parades, medals, speeches. She returned to packing lunches, to helping with algebra homework. The transition was seamless. There was no grand ceremony. The thermos of hot chocolate prepared before dawn became part of family legend. It was no longer just a drink. It was an artifact, a symbol of the morning everything changed. Post-traumatic growth research shows this integration. Extraordinary events are absorbed into the fabric of ordinary life. They become stories told over dinner, lessons whispered at bedtime. The trauma is not erased. It is woven into the identity. It becomes a part of who you are, not something that happened to you. Other parents on the colony looked at their children with a new understanding. They saw not just their own kids, but the reason an entire fleet moved. They saw the value that had been demonstrated to the galaxy. Social psychology confirms this effect. A single act of profound defense can reshape an entire community's identity. It creates a collective understanding of worth and capability. The colony was no longer just a settlement. It was a statement. Every child playing in the dust was a reminder of the price of protection. The galaxy learned that humanity's price was not negotiable. It was absolute. The mother's love remained the central, unbreakable force. It was the catalyst in the engine. It was the reason for the rescue and the source of the legend. It endured long after the battleships had cloaked and departed. It was present in the simple act of stirring chocolate powder into warm milk, in the familiar hum of a lullaby, in the quiet check of a child's forehead at night. This love, transformed into absolute capability, was the galaxy's most powerful, unpredictable constant. It could not be quantified in fleet sizes or weapon yields. It could only be understood in its results. This truth would echo wherever humans raise families. It would be present in the way a father watches the horizon, in the way a community locks its doors. It is the quiet understanding that a home is not a weak point. It is the reason for everything. The galaxy had been warned, not with a threat but with a demonstration. The most dangerous force is not the one that seeks to conquer, but the one that has everything to protect, and will do so with a precision that rewrites the rules of war. The mother's story became every parent's reassurance. Her strength became their shield. Her calm became their comfort. The galaxy measured humanity differently after that day, not by colonies or warships, by their protectors. Families became fortresses defended by love forged into absolute capability. Remember this. True predators do not protect with anger. They protect with precision, with calculation, with the calm of a surgeon. The universe contains forces that measure response with mathematical certainty. Their strength is not in their roar, but in their silence. Their power is not in their taking, but in their keeping. It is a quiet, terrible, and unbreakable force. The story ends. The warning remains. A Xerath officer boasts. The pets were easier to catch than the report suggested. They think they've taken helpless children. But the girl defies them. Primitive doesn't mean stupid. Their mother is already moving. A huntress who measures herself against catastrophe and finds it wanting. Her ritual? Setting thermoses of hot chocolate. How does domestic love forge galactic terror? This isn't just a story of retrieval. It's a lesson in why you never corner what you don't understand. Advanced empires look at frontier colonies and see nothing but soft targets. The Xerath followed a known pattern. They assumed human settlements were primitive and disorganized, just based on surface observations. Their intelligence reports labeled the entire operation as low risk. They saw no centralized military, no orbital defenses, and concluded the people would not muster a coordinated response. It was a classic intelligence failure. The children's abduction was entered into mission logs as routine specimen collection. The term implies scientific purpose. In reality, it meant cataloging and transporting intelligent life without consent. This kind of bureaucratic language conceals the violence of the act. Throughout history, conquerors have made the same mistake. They see a quiet home and assume it is undefended, a family and assume they are passive. The Xerath repeated this error with flawless confidence. During their post-raid debrief, officers joked about collecting pests. The remark was logged, the laughter recorded. It reveals their mindset. They saw humans as lesser, as nuisances to be managed. Galactic empires often develop these blind spots. They expand for centuries without meeting real resistance, so they stop expecting it. They begin to confuse their own power with invincibility. Every perfect operation contains the seeds of its own failure. The Xerath didn't just underestimate human capability. They dismissed the very idea of it. Their confidence was absolute because their previous experiences told them it should be. They had taken children from other species before. There were never consequences, only additions to their collection. So why would this time be any different? What makes them so certain they can raid without repercussion? It's the same certainty that has toppled empires since the beginning of recorded conflict. They believe their technology makes them untouchable. They believe their protocols are unbreachable. Most of all, they believe that those they hunt do not possess the will or the means to hunt back. That confidence became their critical weakness. It made them predictable. It made them blind to the signs of a different kind of predator, one who doesn't rage or panic but calculates, one who sees their arrogance not as a shield but as a blueprint. The raid was flawless on paper, but paper doesn't fight back. In the shadowed corners of alien ports, they tell stories about a human predator. Not a soldier, not a pirate, something else. Her legend moves through trading hubs and military outposts on the edge of civilized space. They say she operates where empires expand and contracts in shadow wars no one acknowledges. Her responses are never excessive. That's what makes them terrifying. Restraint is her signature. She doesn't level cities or burn fleets. She applies pressure exactly where it will be felt. A diplomatic incident resolved without a shot fired. A warship disabled, not destroyed. An invasion force redirected without a single casualty. These are her methods. They leave no room for retaliation, only reassessment. Violence is easy to understand. Measured force is not. When she enters a room, silence follows. Not out of fear, but recognition. Her movements are clean. Her posture straight. She wears practical clothing, no insignia, no rank. Her eyes sweep the area once, missing nothing. She doesn't need to announce herself. Her presence does that for her. The colony deputy doubted her. He looked at this unarmed woman and saw impossibility. "You can't take on a Xerath cruiser alone," he said. Her reply was flat, absolute. "I can and I will." No boast. No emotion. A simple statement of fact. She had already measured the odds, the variables, the timelines. She found them acceptable. Catastrophe is a scale she knows well. She has weighed herself against total loss and found it wanting. This is not resilience. It is recalibration. She recalibrates reality around her will. Her children are missing. That is the only variable that matters now. Everything else is logistics. Her rituals are domestic, ordinary. The thermos of hot chocolate. The packed lunch. The way she folds a child's sweater with exact corners. These are not sentimental gestures. They are anchors. They ground her in purpose when chaos beckons. Normalcy is a weapon against despair. She sharpens it daily. This isn't madness. Madness is impulsive, chaotic, loud. What drives her is the opposite. It is calculated readiness. Every moment of peace was preparation for this. Every school run, every meal cooked, every story read, all of it was training. She was always going to be tested. She was always going to be ready. She is a guardian, forged in wars no one talks about. Her focus is not conquest or glory. It is family. The galaxy is large, cold, and indifferent. She is not. She is specific, focused, and utterly committed. Her love is not a weakness. It is the core of her strength. Her ship moves now. The engines engage without sound. The navigation console lights up with plotted courses, intercept trajectories, burn rates. Her fingers move across the controls. Each action is deliberate. Each second is accounted for. Timing is everything. She has calculated it to the last heartbeat. The Xerith cruiser holds its captives in a sterile white bay. The walls reflect light without warmth. The air smells of ozone and clean metal. The children sit on a polished bench, their feet not touching the floor. They are logged as specimens. Their file is marked for study. The guards wear gray uniforms. Their faces are smooth, their eyes dark and without expression. They perform their duties with a detached efficiency. There is no malice in their actions, only procedure. One guard adjusts a sensor on the girl's wrist. The band is cold. It pinches her skin. She does not pull away. She watches his hands. Primitive doesn't mean stupid, she says. Her voice is clear in the quiet room. The guard pauses. His training did not cover verbal defiance from a juvenile specimen. He continues his task. He logs the anomaly in his report. The entry reads, "Subject exhibited verbal resistance. Non-standard." Her brother leans against her. His voice is small. "Do you think they have Cheetos?" he asks. The question hangs in the sterile air. It is a fragment of a different world, a world of snacks and school and afternoon sun. The guard looks at him. The concept is alien. Sustenance paste is available at designated intervals. Snacks are not a category in the database. The boy's question is a human artifact. It reveals a fragility they cannot process. The guard finishes his scan. He stands to his full height, looking down at them. "You should be afraid," he states. It is not a threat. It is a directive. Fear is a predictable response. It simplifies control. The girl meets his gaze. Her eyes hold a steady heat. It is not the wildfire of panic. It is the contained glow of a forge. It is the same calm her mother possesses. A calm that sees threat and measures it. A calm that has already begun planning. They see two children. A boy and a girl from a backwater colony. They see small limbs and quiet voices. They do not see the architecture of their raising. They do not see the lessons woven into bedtime stories. They do not recognize the posture of someone who has been taught that fear is a tool, not a master. The guard turns away, satisfied. The readings are nominal. The specimens are secure. The system is functioning. They have captured bodies. They have not captured spirits. They have acquired 2 data points for their research. They have not acquired an understanding of what those data points represent. The children are more than the sum of their biology. They are a product of a specific environment, an environment that includes a mother who measures response with mathematical certainty, an environment that prepares for the unthinkable without succumbing to it.